Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm sharing a die cut wedding card using two of the clubs from this month. So this is the Better Together club. It's the Die of the Month club from December 2025. And this is the I'd Pick You Betterpress of the month for December 2025. I'm also pulling in a couple of recent dies to complete the card. So I have this Special Toast die set. I'm going to be using the top hat from that. And then I also have the Boo Crew die set. I'm going to be using the bow tie as well as one of the ghosts to complete this wedding card. So I have all of my pieces die cut here, but I'm going to start working on the background first. I have a piece of Hammermill Cardstock here that I'm going to be using in my Betterpress system with that Betterpress plate of the month. I have a clubs video that I did at the beginning of the month. I'll link it at the end. And I did use my Betterpress of the month in there, but I used it with foiling instead. Often I'll do it with foiling as well as in the Betterpress system because the Betterpress plates can do both. But I ended up not using it in the Betterpress system for that video, so this video shows it in the Betterpress system. So when I'm putting it down on the base of my Betterpress, I'm centering the center part of that heart down that center line. I have a little bit of embossing powder tool that I put on my Hammermill cardstock there, and I inked up the plate with VersaMark ink. I'm going to heat emboss this press plate onto my background. I like using heat embossing with Betterpress because it just adds that extra texture to it, and the Betterpress system you get really good detail. So I do use super fine detail when I'm embossing with Betterpress plates, unless that particular color isn't available in super fine, but I do find you get a lot better detail. So I have silver embossing powder here, the super fine, that I'm putting on that background, and then I'm using my embossing tool to melt that powder. Now you could use whatever color you want here. So if you prefer, say, gold accents, you could absolutely do that. I opted to go with silver for this because in my club video, I used golds with it. So I wanted to do one with silver. The other thing is, when I did the owls card for my club video, I did them in browns. And for this one, I'm going to do them in grays. So I thought the silver would be a nice complement with the grays. I'm also going to heat emboss these sentiments from the Betterpress of the month. So it will create 4 different sentiments. I'm only going to be using one. The rest of them can be saved for future projects. And I want to heat emboss these as well. So once again, using a little bit of embossing powder tool on my cardstock and then inking up that plate with some VersaMark ink before putting the clear plate onto the base and putting it through my Platinum 6 machine. Now that those sentiments have been pressed onto the cardstock, we can add the superfine silver embossing powder. And I'm using that silver again for this because I want them to complement the embossing on the background of my card. But again, you could use a different color if you want. And then I'm using that embossing tool to melt that powder. Now this set comes with a coordinating die, so I can die cut all of these sentiments all at once. When it comes to those dies that coordinate with the sentiments, I like to use some Best Ever Craft tape to tape them in place. I want to make sure that as I'm die cutting and moving them around, they're not going to shift on me. They're going to stay exactly where I want them to be. And these pieces of Best Ever Craft tape can be used a couple times, so you can get several uses out of them, and it makes the roll of tape go a long, long way. Then I put it in my Platinum 6 machine, run it through, and we have several die cut sentiments all at once. And I love when products do multiple sentiments all at once. It just makes it great for having ones for future projects as well as speedy crafting. I'm going to take my background and I'm going to trim it down. I'm taking a 1/4 inch off of each edge, so it ends up being 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And then for my mat around my card, I'm using some Oceanside cardstock, and that is trimmed down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending on my background. So I'm using some spun sugar in the area of the heart. I'm using large Spellbinders ink blending brushes, so I can get a really, really light coat of that ink, but I can build it up till it's as dark as I want it to. To go around that, I'm going to be using some tumbled glass, once again, with those large Spellbinders brushes. I have my piece here on a sticky mat, so it holds it in place for me. You can see, though, my sticky mat does need to be really washed really badly because it's not actually sticking to my surface and staying in place. However, the important thing is that it holds that background in place. It makes it easier for ink blending that background. So once again, with that ink, I can add as much as I want until I have it built up to the darkness that I want. I want to put this right up to the edges of that heart. There is a lighter area because those brushes are so large, you don't have a lot of detail control. but I like that little bit of light glow, if you will, that's around the heart. For the last color, I'm using some Uncharted Mariner around the edges. I'm not making it super dark around the edges because this is going to go onto a piece of Oceanside cardstock, but I always love my edges to be a little bit darker because I think it frames it in just a little bit. Now, I wanted to add just a little bit more sparkle to my background, so I'm using some sparkle splatter accents. This has some mica in it that adds that sparkle, and you want to make sure that it's mixed up really, really well before you use it. It's kind of like a nail polish bottle, and the brush is like a nail polish brush. So when I mixed it up and pull that brush out, I do rub it on the inside of the opening, taking some of the excess off so I have a little bit of control when I do my splatters. The other thing you can do with that brush is use it to paint. Now, it's not a really fine brush. It's like a nail polish brush, so it has that blunt end to it. But for these hearts, it's going to be perfect. It doesn't add any color. You can see that I'm not adding any color to that background. But when you tilt it into the light, those hearts in that heart background are going to shimmer really, really nicely. So you can color in as many or as few as you want. There is also a black splatter accents that you could use. I obviously didn't use it for this one because it didn't go with the color combination that I was using. But if you have darker areas or Halloween cards or spooky cards, that black one is perfect for those. So I have all of my die cuts here, my craft stacks. I want to add a little bit of shimmer to my hearts as well as my flowers. So I put those on my sticky mat, and I'm using the Natural Pearl ink from Lisa Horton Crafts. This is a new one this fall. It is kind of a white ink that has gorgeous shimmer to it. So when you use it on dark colors, you'll see a little bit of that white haze to it. It's not a bright white, but when you use it on light colors, all you see is that beautiful shimmer. So on that heart, when I lifted it up there, you could see that there's a lighter area around the outside from the white portion of that ink. But when it comes to those flowers on the right-hand side of my mat, it only added shimmer to those flowers. So when we tilt these cards into the light, it's just going to have a beautiful shimmer on them. And I thought for a wedding card, that's just a perfect accent to it. I have some die cuts here to do my owls. The lighter color is a die cut out of Fog cardstock. The darker gray is Anchor cardstock. And I wanted to add a little bit of ink blending to them as well, just to give them a little bit of visual dimension. The inking is really, really subtle. These pieces are not very big, but I wanted to have a little bit of it in there. You see it mostly on the faces more than, say, the tails and that upper crest or crown for the male owl. So once I have all of my ink blending done, I'm ready to add my die cuts or glue my die cuts together. I'm using some Barely Art glue. I have it in a fine line bottle. So this works perfectly for gluing die cuts together. It gives you that little bit of wiggle room to move and shimmy things in place, and then it starts to stick really well. The only exception to that is specialty cardstocks. It takes a little bit longer to dry on those. For my top hat, I have the black die cut out of some of the Onyx Treasured Cardstock pack, and I have it die cut out of the mirror, so it has some really nice shine to it. The teal color is die cut out of the Aquamarine Treasured Cardstock, and that one I use the matte finish. Those Treasured Cardstock packs have 15 sheets in them total, 5 different finishes. So they're a great way to add metallic or specialty cardstock touches to your die cut pieces. I always think when you use some specialty cardstocks with the die cuts, especially when you want ones like this where you assemble them together, having different finishes just gives different things for your eye to look at, and it makes them look really interesting, as well as the fact that it just elevates it a little bit, especially when you have some specialty cardstocks in there or something that has some shimmer ink blending on it. So after assembling all of my die cuts for the bases of the owls, I have them under my acrylic block. I just hold everything under an acrylic block while it's drying. It holds everything nice and flat, but it frees up my hands for working with other things. I'm going to work on the flower crown on the head of the female owl. The base part is a little strip of leaves, and then there are some tiny flowers to go on top of it. I have them die cut out of 3 different pink tones of cardstock. I have blush, chiffon, as well as wild berry here. And I also have larger flowers from this set die cut out of those same 3 colors as well. But those are going to go onto the branch that the owls are going to be sitting on. When it comes to these little flowers here, there's 2 separate individual ones, and then there's 2 that are stuck together. So as I'm gluing these pieces together, I was left with a cluster of 2. They're easy enough to cut apart if you want them to be individual flowers instead. And I also find it very helpful with such tiny flowers to use reverse tweezers to hold those in place or to hold the die cut while you're putting it down. For the veil for my owl, this is where I'm using the ghost from the Boo Crew set. So I die cut it out of some shimmery white vellum. This is from a colored vellum pack from Pear Blossom Press. It just adds that perfect amount of shimmer and it just makes it a little bit more elevated. Another option here would be to get some tulle from the fabric store. I didn't have any on hand and the fabric store is just too far away for just something small and simple like this project. So I thought using that ghost die cut with vellum was absolutely perfect. And I use that shimmery vellum, but you could use plain white vellum instead. If you prefer that and preferred not to have the shimmer, that would look fantastic as well. So to assemble the rest of my card, first of all, I'm putting that branch down where I want it to go. Then I'm just lightly placing those hearts on top. I don't have any glue on those before I put down the tails to my owls. Now, when I did my video for the clubs, I put the tails to the owls right in front of the branch, right on top of it, because they're going to be covered with the florals and the leaves. This one, I did put it under the branch because I think that's technically the way it's supposed to go. However, I'm putting leaves and florals there anyway, so they're going to be completely covered. So just know that if you don't want to put them under the branch, you absolutely can put them on top if you're covering them with those leaves and the florals. Then I put the owl heads on. Those hearts there are just keeping everything in place so that I have the placing right. After I put the female head on, I went and added the veil behind her, and I only put glue on the face of that ghost because that was going to be hidden by the head of the owl. Then I didn't put any on the ends or the train part of the veil because I don't want any of that adhesive showing. Then I put the hearts in place as well as that little bow tie and the top hat. Now, again, I'm putting that acrylic block on there to hold everything in place, hold the glue while it's drying. And because that top hat is done with some specialty cardstock, it is going to take just a few extra moments for that part to dry anyway. So I can keep that on there while I'm adding the leaves and the florals. Now I'm putting the leaves on first and then putting some of the florals, and I will end up poking in some extra leaves. And that's another bonus to using liquid glue, is it dries somewhat quickly, but it still has some wiggle room to it. So if I put a flower down and then decide I want a leaf poking in behind it, I can easily, lift that flower just a little bit just to tuck in the leaves. I'm also, when I'm putting the glue on the flowers, I'm only putting them in the center of the flower so that there's a little bit of extra wiggle room for the leaves, for the foliage, as well as I have some extra of those teeny tiny flowers from the head part, and I want to be able to tuck those behind some of the larger flowers and leaves. And by only putting the glue on the center parts of the flowers, that makes it a little bit easier. Now I'm doing a color palette here that's pinks and blues, but you could easily change it up for the colors of the wedding. And I also think this would also be a great bridal shower card. Like, you don't necessarily have to use it as a wedding one. I think you could use it for different things as well. Even a Valentine's card, maybe without the top hat and the bridal veil, would be fun. So after I have all of my pieces glued into my flowers, as well as my greenery, I am going to be using some stickles on the center of the flowers. Now, there is pieces in this die set to die cut colors for die cut cardstock or specialty cardstock for those flower centers, but I tend to really like just using stickles. It doesn't add any color to it, but you could use a colored stickles. I like to use an opalescent one that has no color to it, so it just adds a little bit of sparkle to it. And I think it's especially perfect with these ones because they're meant to be more of a wedding or bridal card. So I think it is perfect with it, and it adds a little bit of extra shimmer, a little bit of extra texture. I always love when my die cut pieces or die cut cards have little bits of extra texture in different surfaces, like the mirror cardstock or the matte cardstock, the specialty cardstocks, or the embossing or the glossy accents and stickles. So I'm going to put the stickles in the center of those flowers. I added that sentiment to the bottom. I left the sentiment white because it coordinates with the outside of the card, but you could also ink blend it if you wanted to add some color to it, or you could put that on colored cardstock. After I put the stickles on, I'm going to put some glossy accents on the owl eyes. I kind of thought with such large eyes there, they'd be great if they had some clear, shiny dimension to them. So I'm putting some just in the sockets of the owls. If by chance you can't get all the way to the edges of that, you can use a die pick to help move the glossy accents all the way to the edges, but you do want to do that while it's still liquid and wet. Another thing, if you get a bubble in there, you can pop that with a thumbtack or with a needle. But again, you want to do that while it's still wet. So you don't want to leave that in there to dry. So once that is done, I let that dry for probably about 45 minutes. When you first put the glossy accents on there, they are kind of milky, but once they are dry, they're nice and clear and shiny. And here we have the finished card there. I absolutely love the different finishes between the glossy accents on the eyes. You can really see the shiny part of the matte cardstock on the top hat as well as the shine on the die cut edges of that top hat. The shimmer on the flowers doesn't really show up in the video, but it is gorgeous in person, as well as the shimmer and splatter on the background from those sparkle splatter accents. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed just a little bit of a different way of using this die set with some other ones. I hope you have a fantastic day.